Chargers general manager Tom Telesco had an hour and 7 minute end of year press conference this week, and we got to hear a lot about Justin Herbert and his thoughts on him not believing in quarterback windows, Brandon Staley's fourth down decisions, and also why special teams coordinator Derius Swinton was let go.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and this is our sixth season now covering the Chargers. We started doing our own Facebook Live show, Chargers Domination Live, and now we're headed into our fifth season as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. And you can find the show every day for free on all platforms wherever you get your podcast from. And if you haven't already, make sure to check out the new Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and subscribe there. But thank you guys for making us your first listen today, because we finally got some news, David, some real live fresh content to talk about today. And of course, it was so much that we're going to have to split it into two parts. So Tom Telesco had his end of year press conference that went an hour and 7 minutes, talked about Brandon Staley and those fourth down decisions, also talked about the quiet drive from Justin Herbert that seems to fill the building, and much more, including, Mike Williams and potentially bringing him back, and why Derius Swinton got fired. And that was a little bit surprising to me, at least his thoughts on that. It seemed like it was more of a Staley thing than it was a Tom Telesco thing. But we also get into next week on Monday, because there was so much. We have, so much to talk about from Tom Telesco's final press conference of the season. We'll get into, what he thought about Jerry Tillery, him overestimating what the team had defensively, but also being okay with the depth on the team. So that's something I'll have to ponder about over the weekend and kind of hold in until I can explode it to you guys on Monday. But let's start with Justin Herbert, David, because he was effusive with his praise of the coaching staff when asked about Justin Herbert specifically. He just talked about how good of a job that Shane Day and, Frank Smith, Joe Lombardi, and even Brandon Staley did with Justin Herbert. But one of the interesting things that he said about Justin Herbert was he has a great drive, and the players feel that. He said it's a quiet drive, but it's a drive that you feel throughout the building because of his work ethic and because of just some of those things that maybe him leading by example, right? And I think that is a good way to put it with Justin Herbert, because it does seem like he has that quiet confidence in himself. That like ultra competitor that he has inside of him. He keeps it down most of the time, right? But you do see it in kind of little flashes of seeing that kind of, the I was in moment. Like, that seems like an uncharacteristic thing from Justin Herbert, but I think he's just always trying to be the cool, calm head, cool-headed guy. But I think there is something to that. I do think that is something Tom Telesco is right about, because I do feel like he kind of does radiate that quiet inner confidence, and I think that does permeate throughout the team.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it shows in the big moments. He's just so, cool, calm, and collected. He's got that ice water in his veins. And I think he has that confidence because he knows he puts the work in, and he gets the respect from his teammates because he does go out there. He does get in the weight room. He is with those guys. He's putting in that work. He may not be that rah-rah guy where he's that loud, type of inspirational leader. They have that. That's Derwin James. But Justin Herbert is also a leader of this team as well, but he just goes out there and does it through his preparation. He lets his preparation do the talking during the week, and then on Sunday, he lets his play do the talking then.
And I think he makes a fair point about, Joe Lombardi and Shane Day, right? Even Frank Smith, who is the run game coordinator for the Chargers. Like, all that stuff did work in lockstep this season. And for what they had to do as far as bringing in and installing a totally different offense, to have a top 5 offense in the league is something that, you can't really slander at all. I mean, they came in, the transition seemed seamless, right? And, Justin Herbert had some growing pains along the way, but also put up a very elite season. So that was one of the things that Tom Telesco and Brandon Staley, to a lesser extent, had to get right. And I know people had their issues with Joe Lombardi, but it's not as if anyone's less excited about Justin Herbert this year. Like, he went out and had a top 5 quarterback season after getting like a top 10 his first season. He's progressing. He's getting better and making strides. And like, that part, the Chargers absolutely nailed. Tom Telesco deserves some credit for that as well.
And Tom Telesco said, "Hey, we're just scratching the surface of what Joe Lombardi wants to do with this offense. If scratching the surface of what he wants to do is 4,000 or 5,000 plus passing yards, 1,800 plus rushing yards, I mean that's pretty exciting. And I think just the more and more Justin Herbert gets to stay in one system with hopefully some continuity at the coordinator position. He's had what 5 or 6 different coordinators like his
Yeah.
entire ride from college and into the pros. So to have some continuity and some carryover, I think is only going to benefit Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I do want to see what that looks like. I mean, I don't have any, unless obviously Joe Lombardi gets a job as a head coach somewhere, which isn't going to
Right.
happen, I don't think, at this point. But like, if that would happen, yeah, you have to start, having to question that thing. But I do think it was interesting, though, what he said about the quarterback window, because there was a
Yeah.
few different reporters that asked throughout the interview process, are you trying to really take advantage of having Justin Herbert, such an elite talent, on a rookie contract? And he really diffused it every time. But the last time it seemed to get to him a little bit, where he kind of wanted to not show off his bona fides necessarily, but kind of be like, okay, like, that's an overblown thing, right? He said he hates that narrative, and I thought that was interesting. He said, "Don't believe in rookie quarterback contracts, a really bad narrative. There were like 10 teams in the playoffs that didn't have rookie quarterback contracts. I was with a team before this for 10 years with a very high paid quarterback, and they won, they did just fine," basically paraphrasing there. He said he doesn't believe in windows. We try to win it all every year. That's the generic thing. We try to win it all every year. We can't focus and say this is the window, so we're trying extra hard this year, because of
Right.
course you're trying to win it all every year. But I also think that's underplaying how important it is, or how, just because, a lot of the playoff teams, I mean, I think there is something to it being overblown, right? I mean, maybe that is, thought about too much, winning while he's on his rookie contract. And there's a lot of guys out there that aren't in their rookie contract that are in the playoffs. That is
Sure.
true. But it doesn't take away from the great opportunity that you have right now to build around that specific rookie contract and to be a little bit more aggressive because of that.
Right. Well, and I think you got to just keep in mind the value that you're getting from Justin Herbert on the contract that he is currently signed to, and I
Right.
think that's what the reality is. I mean, the whole stigma of a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract, it's not about that. It's about the flexibility that it allows you because you have the most important player on your team signed to a contract that is nowhere close to the value that he is bringing you, which will allow you to supplement your roster or add to your roster and sign different guys to different types of contracts while you have that all important quarterback on a very, very cost effective and cost team friendly deal.
Yeah, I mean, and it just allows you to do some different things. And like, I
Yeah.
think some of that, is overblown too, just because, like, yeah, there are a couple of guys that aren't technically on rookie contracts, but they got extensions. So technically, this still kind of is part of their rookie contracts, even though
Right.
they got paid, like a Patrick Mahomes, for
Yeah.
example. But I do think he's just like, you could tell how frustrated he was with the question. But like, I think it's a fair question, because there are different
Absolutely.
things that you can do. And it just seemed like, when talking about free agency and stuff, he was just like, we have to treat it like every year. We can't focus offensively or defensively, all that stuff. But like, it's like, this is a pretty unique opportunity for you to take advantage of this, even though it's not how every team ends up winning it. And he did say you have to evolve, and that's true. And you're going to have to, because just because this is a window doesn't mean it's the only window during Justin
Yeah.
Herbert's career. It just might be the easiest window to build around him and give him the best supporting
Exactly.
cast. And I think that's pretty irrefutable as far as just a salary cap standpoint, and just
Hmm.
by, the numbers. But the other thing that was so talked about this season had to be Brandon Staley's fourth down decisions. And I do think there were some rumblings out there on Twitter, on social media, that like, is the front office okay with Brandon Staley's decisions to do that, right? Some even making the link to Derius Swinton firing and his game management role being part of that. But it did seem like Tom Telesco was pretty supportive of Brandon Staley's decisions. So we'll get into that, and also why Derius Swinton, not special teams coordinator, ended up getting fired after this. But hey guys, it's me, Dan, here from the Locked On Chargers podcast, your host, and I have an incredible app that I have to tell everyone about who buys gas that you need to know about, and it's the Get Upside app. And right now, guys, you can be saving up to 25 cents per gallon every time that you go to the gas pump with the Get Upside app. You can get it from the App Store or the Google Play Store and start saving money today. And there's no reason not to do it, guys. And if you guys, since you listen to this podcast, want to download the app and use the promo code TOUCHDOWN, you guys can save up to 50 cents per gallon back on your first fill up. That means you can take 50 cents off the number you see on the board, which makes it a lot more stomachable, right? When you can take money off the horrendous gas prices, especially in California, up to 50 cents off that when you use the promo code touchdown. And I like to say that there's no downside with Get Upside because you can get the money straight into your bank account. You can get it through PayPal. You can also get it in Amazon gift cards and other big gift card brands as well. And if you're a rideshare driver, if you do food delivery or anything like that, you can save up to hundreds of dollars a month and up to 25 cents per gallon on every visit, not just the first visit. But if you use the promo code touchdown on that first visit, you guys can save up to 50 cents per gallon back on that first visit with the Get Upside app. I also need to tell you guys about my favorite place to bet, and that is betonline.ag. And I've been putting a lot of bets up during the playoffs, and it's going to continue this weekend. And the only place I'm doing it is with betonline.ag because betonline is the best place to go because they have the best odds, lines, and props that you're going to find. And right now, they have a bunch of crypto boosts. If you guys want to load money in crypto, they will boost that up for you with taking a ton of different currencies. You can pretty much get in any way you want. And you can head to the new updated website right now and desktop. If you guys want to get 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit, you can do that. Since you listen to the show, you can get up to 50% on that deposit bonus. That's free money to play with the promo code Locked On. That's promo code Locked On, all caps, one word, to get that 50% welcome bonus. And you guys, whatever you guys want to bet on, you can find it at Bet Online. You're going to find some crazy tournaments going on with a chance to bet a little and win a lot. And that's always what I'm trying to do. And from football, basketball, hockey, boxing, right to the UFC, which has a huge event for heavyweight championship, a couple of championships on the line this weekend. I'm going to be betting on that, and I'm going to be betting on that with betonline.ag. And even if it's your favorite Vegas casino games, you can find those on there too, because BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, David. Well, as you know, there was so much to talk about during this Tom Telesco press conference. I was stressed out when I saw that it was an hour and 7 minutes, and rightfully so. But
Yeah.
I do want to get into this Brandon Staley thing because that was, I mean, you talk about notoriety. Like, Brandon Staley kind of put the Chargers on the map with good and bad things as far as those decision makings. Just making the decisions to go for it on fourth down was something that kind of transcended the local market here, for the
Oh,
Chargers
yeah.
in Los Angeles, and was a nationally talked about storyline, especially when it comes back to bite you, in the final game of the season with the playoffs on the
Always.
line after going for it, from your own 18-yard line. But there was a lot of people that were wondering, how how on board is Tom Telesco with this whole fourth down process. But this is what he had to say. I trust our head coach 100%. I want to play aggressive football. You know what you get with us. We're going to play aggressive. It's not reckless. I don't really see it as reckless, all of these decisions, even though they're made in real time. There's research involved in prior to the game. There's also context involved too. Brandon Staley's not a robot. He's not just making the decisions solely based on the numbers. But he also said that Brandon Staley did an excellent job with what he had this year. He has my support behind that. So I think that is a good place, at least for, he could have just done what he did for a lot of the interview and just said, like, I'm not worried about that or focused on that. I'm focused on 2021 or whatever. But I think that is nice to see that at least they're on the same page there, because I definitely don't want that to stop. And you would think with Brandon Staley specifically, if he was going to stop being like that, you'd almost feel like it had to be coming from up top.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely nice to see some synchronization with the message from the head coach and with the general manager, because I mean, those are, as much as the owner is the owner, like, those are the two faces that you see more than anyone else as far as when you're looking at this Chargers organization. Those are the two dudes that are leading this team forward. And I think one of the things that was kind of interesting for me was that, like, hey, when he said, hey, when you put on the Chargers this year and you watched us, it was an exciting brand of football, and
It's true.
that aggressive nature. That's who we are, and it's something. Hey, we're in this to win football games. Of course, that's the number one thing we're trying to do. But we're also here to entertain, and you couldn't put us on this year and not be entertained from what you saw. That's the identity that we're going to play with, and that's how we are going to do things going forward. So at least the fact that Brandon Staley and Tom Telesco, I think, created an identity, and they are going to stick with that identity going forward.
And I think, this is a team that's kind of struggled to find its identity for a
I
long
agree.
time. And I think in the Anthony Lynn era, the want was always to, be that team and be the big muscly, we're going to out tough you
We're
team, even
bowing
though
up.
the personnel never really fit that, right? And
Right.
the guys they had didn't really fit that. And I don't know if they ever did throughout his tenure here, but it didn't stop him from doing it, right?
Right.
That's what he tried to make their identity, but they never really had that identity. With Brandon Staley, at least you feel like you feel some kind of identity. I mean, I don't think he wants the defensive identity to be the fifth worst scoring defense in the
At
league.
all. At all.
But I do think that when you think of the Chargers, when you think of Brandon Staley now, it's word association with, oh, the dude's going for it on fourth down all the
Right.
time.
Fourth and
And like,
Staley, right? Yeah, you
correct.
see that out there.
100%. And I love that. I mean, I know
Oh
there's so
yeah.
many people that get mad in the moment. I think now a couple of weeks to kind of chill out a little bit. Like, I think most people can say in a vacuum, you'd way rather have that than the guy that's not going for it in those situations, even if you don't agree with the play call or if you have some other exceptions that you take with it. But
If you could sit through Malibu Milk Toast Mike McCoy and the way he made decisions, and then you look at how Brandon Staley runs his team and how he makes decisions, I think it's pretty obvious which brand of football you would prefer to watch.
I think that we also learned a little bit about Brandon Staley from this press conference because of what Tom Telesco had to say about Derius Swinton. He was asked why Derius Swinton was fired, or at least to get more into specifics about it. He said, I think our special teams, there was an improvement from 2020 to 2021. I think there was an improvement in season this year, certainly. I don't think he will be out of work for long. I do think that Brandon wants the perfect fit for this coaching staff, and he wants that done as soon as possible. He was asked to follow up, was it philosophy or personality? And he said it was more generally wasn't the perfect fit. So I don't know what this tells you, David, because like obviously, I mean, it's nice to get some clarification and it's a little bit surprising. And I mean, I guess it's how much stock you put into what Telesco is saying too, as far as why he was like, oh, obviously you have to take it at face value during this conversation. But I do, I guess, like the fact that, if Brandon Staley sees something and even though it gets better, but still wasn't good enough, that, he's willing to cut ties with something or, maybe admit that he made a mistake when picking this guy and try to find somebody who's a better fit.
Yeah, I think it's just, Brandon Staley kind of talking a little bit through Tom Telesco, or Tom Telesco kind of
It's
explaining
hard to
that a
say.
little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah, but I do like the fact that they're just saying, hey, it didn't work out, and I think that's just hey, you don't always know how things are going to work when you just start a working relationship with somebody. You might have a vision for how it's going to go. Of course, you're going to be optimistic about it when you first make that decision, but after the season, you have time to reflect on how things went throughout the entirety of a 17 game season and really feel like, hey, is this going in the direction I needed to go, or you know is this relationship really going to be the one that takes me where this team needs to go? And obviously that wasn't the case with Derius Swinton. So we're going to have to see who they bring in and if it's another guy from a relationship that Brandon Staley had established while he's been in the league.
And the only guy that I think they publicly have interviewed for was the former Giants special teams coordinator. So there hasn't been a
Yeah.
lot out there. He did say that they're going to be looking at a big pool of people to choose from, but we don't have a lot of information on that yet. But I do think that will be telling to see, who they end up going with next, trying to find that better fit. So that was interesting, and Tom Telesco didn't really open up about much, right? But it seemed like one of the things he did kind of open up about was when he was asked about specific players, and
Yeah.
what that did lead to, at least in this interview, at least as far as transparency's sake, is him actually giving some good thoughts on Mike Williams, about Storm Norton and the offensive line, and also the running back two situation, which I mean I have a bone to pick with the Josh Kelly of it all. So we're going to get into that. But first, I need to tell you guys that I'm starving right now. And that's because I haven't gotten my Built Bar in today. And Built Bar is the best protein bar on the planet. If you guys haven't tried it yet, you're making a mistake, because Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. And especially with New Year's here and trying to stay on your New Year's resolutions, I'm hanging in strong. I'm intermittent fasting. It's going great. I'm getting married later this year. It's cutting time, got to stay on that diet. Built Bar has helped me more than you would believe, because it's something that I can eat that fits in with my diet while also being something that tastes great. Because for me, I mean, you might be able to tell, but I like the taste of great food. It's very hard for me to eat protein bars when they don't taste good. So if I get something that's waxy or chalky or tastes like a chemical spill, I'm not going to eat it no matter what the health benefits are, right? I eat enough chicken and broccoli. I need a treat sometimes. Built Bar is where I go because it tastes great. There's a ton of great flavors to choose from, and they're all 100% covered in chocolate, soft and easy to chew. And you get great flavors like cookies and cream, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, salted caramel, just to name a few of them. And you can get a mix box so you can try it and figure out which one of the Built Bars is your favorite. And if you get the mix box, I promise you, you're going to find one that you like. And the nice thing is they're all low on carbs, they're low on sugar, which I can't have a lot of, while being high in fiber and packed with protein. One of the best bang for your bucks as far as protein you're getting in a protein bar, while also getting something that tastes good. Things like this aren't supposed to exist in the wild. This is a cheat code for your diet. Get some Built Bars, get something that tastes great and also fits on your diet, and save some money, because since you listen to the show, if you go to built.com, you can save 15% off your order with the promo code LOCKED15. That's promo code LOCKED15, all caps, one word, to save 15% off at built.com. All right, David, well, there's more to get into here, and I'm glad that we get to talk about some specific players, and we'll have some more to talk about next week when we get into part 2, and I just, pull my hair out with Tom Telesco saying that there's not a depth problem with this team. It was hard not to
Yeah.
get to that today, but I do want to talk and keep it offensively right now, because there was some things that we have to talk about, including what he had to say about Storm Norton. Let's start with Storm Norton, because when he was asked about Storm Norton, it seemed like one of the things he wanted to do, and I don't blame him for this, was protect Storm Norton, right? He was
Sure.
asked if he felt comfortable if Storm Norton was the starting right tackle. Super non-committal towards that. And I mean, it wasn't
As he
like he
should be, right? As he should
totally.
be.
But one of the things he said is that everyone wants to bash Storm Norton, right? But at the same time, he's part of a unit that was a top 5 offensive line this season, and he also had a
Well,
lot of
top
really
5
good games.
offense, yeah.
No, I mean, top 5 offensive line as far as pass blocking efficiency and things like that. I mean, he was talking specifically about the line. It was a top 5 unit, and he's included in that unit. And he said Michael Schofield is also included in that unit.
Yeah,
That's fair. But at the same
sure.
time, I mean, just because, a player played better than expectations, did a lot of good things, but also had some really bad games, doesn't mean that he's the answer, right? And just, I think
Oh,
he's one
yeah.
of the, and he said, I know he gave up a lot of pressures, but he deserves a lot of credit as well. I don't think he gave him anything as far as, he said there's going to be competition at right tackle next year. And as there should be for every position, and he has to kind
Yeah.
of generalize it like that. But yeah, I mean, he's right though, David. I mean, he was part of an offensive line that was one of the better offensive lines in the league this year, which was a huge turnaround. But he was also part of the reason that they weren't the best offensive line, right? And they also still have to very much be trying to upgrade that going into 2022.
Yeah, and I think we got to look at this with a little bit of perspective, right? I mean, Storm Norton came in here that the Chargers signed from the XFL. He
Totally.
was never expected to be the starting right tackle of this team,
No.
but that's what happened. He was thrown out of the frying pan and directly into the fire.
And he had
And
some really good games. He really
yes,
did have some
he
good games.
he did. He absolutely did. And I think you got a lot more out of Storm Norton than you ever expected to get. And I think that we have to keep that perspective when we're talking about that. Was he one of the worst right tackles in the NFL this year? Yes. I think the numbers would absolutely support that. But I think the production that you got versus what you were expecting to get, I think has to be some context you have to keep when you're talking about Storm Norton.
100%. I mean, he far exceeded my expectations. I mean, the first game, he goes out there and handles Montez Sweat for a lot of the game. Like, did also give up, a fumble that was not a fumble, but for the most part held his own, and then had some really tough games. Like Micah Parsons tortured him, Max
Yeah.
Crosby tortured him, and Max
Yeah.
Crosby's also a great player that led the league by a large margin in pressures. So yeah, I
Sure
mean, he
did.
had some rough moments, and it doesn't mean he's a bad player, but you can't rely on that going into next season. Like
Yeah,
you have to always be trying to upgrade it, and there's certain positions you need to try to upgrade more than others, and right tackle is one of those positions.
definitely.
So let's get into Mike Williams. What do you have to say about that? Because he obviously one of the main things, if you didn't get to watch the press conference, I don't blame you if you didn't watch an hour and 7 minute Tom Telesco press
We did it
conference,
for you.
was that, yeah, that's why we're doing this, was that he was talking about Mike Williams and other players as if, like, I'm not going to talk about that. And he's like, I'm
Right.
not going to talk about 2022. I'm focused on
Yeah.
2021.
Right.
And that was a big theme throughout the press conference. But when he did talk about Mike Williams, he just said, I'm so happy we drafted him, right? I'm so happy that he played for us this year. He also said he didn't just have one good season. He had a few good seasons. He had a season with 1,000 yards and a season with 10 touchdowns. And his
Yep.
freshman year or rookie season was
Yeah.
more like a medical redshirt freshman year, right?
Yeah.
When he's right. He was banged up, all that stuff. Mike Williams deserves a lot of credit for what he did this season, but I don't know how committed he was to it. It was weird because he kind of did the same thing with Brandon Staley, as far as like, I was down on the field in overtime for that Raiders game, and like, what an all-time bad move for Tom Telesco and Dean Spanos to walk down to the field in overtime of the biggest game of the season. I mean, I'm not all superstitious, but I'm a little stitious, and that seemed like a really dumb thing to do. But at the same time, he talked about, just seeing what Mike Williams put out in this game and just that he has been there for all those big catches throughout the years, not just this last
Mhm.
season. It doesn't give Tom Telesco a lot to say a lot about it because he's going into contract negotiations with this dude
Yeah, he's not going to
in the
say
next couple
anything.
months, right? But I still get the overwhelming, feeling that he's going to come back.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think you heard a lot of the same things that you've heard previously when Tom Telesco and the coaching staff and the organization has talked about Mike Williams. It's this guy's a gutsy guy type of player. We really respect him and we love everything that he's done and brought to the table. Whenever there's been a big play, he's been out there to go get those big plays for us. It's been a lot of the same, and that I felt like it was just a continuation of that in this press conference as well. I mean, he didn't give away anything. He didn't say, "Hey, we're going to try to re-sign him," or "Hey, we're going to franchise." No, nothing like that. You weren't going to get anything like that. As Dan said, hey, they're probably going to about to go to the table and try to work out some kind of deal, whether that is a franchise tag or whether that is a long-term deal. That's never going to happen. Todd Telesco, keeps all of his cards close to the vest. But I just think it was that same tone that we've heard consistently about Mike Williams again in this press conference.
Yeah, it was for sure. And then one of the things he was asked towards the end of the press conference was about the running back two position. And, one of the things he said is just that, yeah, they don't want it to be all of Austin Eckler, right? But
Right.
he did seem very, very high on upcoming free agent Justin Jackson. Said that Justin Jackson gave him a spark, said he's really good in pass protections, he's a really good special teams player. All of those things are fair. He's also been very, inconsistent at staying on the field and his
And he did say
durability.
that too. He
He
did
did.
acknowledge that.
Yeah, well, he said he's been a spark for us, and he's played great every time he's on the field.
Yeah.
Which insinuates, yeah, but he has to be on the field for sure. But I just wonder what they're going to do behind Justin Jackson, who I'm assuming they're going to bring back. Because when he talked
Yeah.
about Josh Kelly, he said Josh Kelly runs hard, Josh Kelly converts first downs, and like Josh
Huh?
Kelly always, I don't like saying mean things about players. I don't like. I mean,
Well,
we don't go
especially
out of our
Josh
way to
Kelly,
bash.
man, because that
Oh,
smile is unbelievable, and it's hard to want to talk bad about the dude. But
totally.
simply production on the football field, I can't confidently
It's hard
say
to,
that
yeah.
if I need to get a first down, that Josh Kelly is going to get me that first down. There was
No.
just so many runs that was 1 yard and into the ground, or no gain, or a 2 yard run where it feels like he's really expending every bit of energy that he has to go get it. It just the words, the compliments, the praise that he provided for Josh Kelly is not really in sync with the Josh Kelly that we have seen up to this point.
Yeah, and I did think like towards the end of the year, he had a couple of good moments, right? He has the fourth down play where he has a lot of room to make up, where he has to go get a first down. His third, fourth down, he goes and gets it, right? Went a long
Sure.
ways to do it. He had a couple conversions. He also had a couple of times where we were yelling, "Why is he on the field
Yeah.
on fourth down and getting stuffed?" And he
Yep.
also had a couple of moments where he absolutely, you know, S word of the bed in pass protection and let, Justin Herbert get lit up or, let a play get totally disrupted. So like there's other issues there. When he talked about Larry Roundtree, he said he started off well, still think there's a lot there. And he talked about all their special teams value as well. And like I do think some, those guys played roles on special teams. But I
Yeah.
also think at the same time they played very replaceable roles on special teams.
Sure.
Like you're not
Yeah.
keeping you like Larry Roundtree and Josh Kelly at this point are not worth keeping around just as special teams players. They're not specialists. They're
No.
getting kept there because of their running back ability as well. They have to be, even though you do have to play some special teams. It has to be both. You have to bring some value as a running back. And it just scares me because now there's four dudes in the room. You're not keeping any more than that. So,
Yeah.
like, this all could be word salad nonsense, and false bravado and, false confidence in these dudes. But like, it sounds like they're bringing back Justin Jackson. Are you going to spend a draft pick on a running back for the third year in a row? And the last two are Larry Roundtree and Josh Kelly in the fourth and sixth rounds, respectively. I don't know, David. It's a scary thought when you're hearing these thoughts on these guys because I just don't know. With Josh Kelly, he's going into year three. Players develop different, all of those things. I just don't know what you've seen out of either of those two dudes to think that they should have a big role in the offense at all not including special teams going into 2022.
Well, yeah, because the coaching staff gave all of those guys numerous opportunities
They
to
did.
try to carve out a role in this running back room all season long, and that did not take place. You did not get any kind of production from any of those guys that would make you say, okay, we have something here. This guy for sure should be part of this room. I didn't get that sense. I don't even get that sense with Justin Jackson, even though, when he's on the field, we saw some decent things. I think that anybody in that room not named Austin Eckler should feel uncomfortable because none of them really put forth the type of play that would garner them to be back in the fold next season.
I think the other tough thing too is that like right now your best running back was an undrafted free agent.
Yeah?
Your second best running back who's a free agent was a 7th round pick. The underperforming players are the 4th round pick, who was, of course, it hurts more because he was the next pick after you traded up to get Kenneth Murray. And the other one was a 6th round pick. And you can find value at running back late. And these seem like 2 whiffs for Tom Telesco, who, I mean, honestly,
2 more
why
whiffs.
would you want to, point more attention to your big whiff? So I understand him saying these things, but as far as like actual confidence in these guys going into next season, that's just something that's hard to have. Obviously, I hope they do great.
Of
Hopefully
course.
something clicks and they start playing well. But like neither one of those dudes is like special in anything that we've seen so far. Like Justin Jackson, you've seen some special vision, a special kind of cutback,
Yeah,
that he
some nice
has.
wiggle, some
Sure.
agility for sure.
We know Austin Eckler's special. With these two guys though, it seemed like they went low floor or high floor, low ceiling though. With like, because it's like
Mhm.
neither of these guys bring anything specifically athletically. They're not like athletic enough to be athletic, scat back, third down specialist, gonna make people miss.
No.
And they're also not big enough to be a true typical bruiser that's gonna come
Right.
in and get you the first down.
They're like a true tweener.
Right. So it's like, how can you make that work? Maybe they turn into great special teams players, but you do need some value at the actual running back position because obviously, as Tom Telesco admitted, that they didn't get enough of the non Austin Eckler running backs this season. But there was just so much meat on this bone from this Tom Telesco press conference. There was no way we were going to get to everything today. So we will back with you guys on Monday with part 2 of breaking down Tom Telesco's press conference. And on Monday, we'll talk about what he had to say about the defense, including some admitting some fault to maybe overestimating what they had defensively. He also said that depth was not an issue for the Chargers in 2021. So we absolutely have to get into that, including, his thoughts on guys like Jerry Tillery, Kenneth Murray, Michael Davis, just to name a few, and Uchenna Nwosu, who, after you hear his thoughts on that, you'll probably think that Uchenna is definitely coming back to the Chargers next season. When you hear things like, I don't think there's anything I could say that I don't like about his game. But you have to come back on Monday for that to make sure you don't miss it. Make sure to subscribe to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and also follow the show for free on all platforms wherever you get your podcast from. Thank you guys for making us your first listen. You can also find the show every day in all of our social media. You can find us on Twitter at Locked On LAC. You can find us on our Locked On Chargers Facebook page and our at Locked On Chargers Instagram page as well. If you guys want to get your voicemails in, the number is 323-524-7924. And we try to get every Chargers voicemail played on the show. And you guys really brought it for us this week as well. We appreciate you guys listening through this whole week during the off season and continuing to support us. We very much appreciate it. And you can follow me on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports and David Jogmeyer on Twitter at DroTalkSD. But their depth was good. What are we talking about here? We'll get into that on Monday. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.